final talk of the session will be me, Tauhid, and I'm talking about the impact of bots on opinions in social networks. This is done to the whole team. So Scott, Nicolas, former student Zakaria, all kind of us got together and like worked on this kind of cool problem about how bots affect our opinions. Okay. So the kind of goal of this talk is to kind of understand the impact of influence campaigns. Right? So you know, the news, probably heard the stories about the Russians. They attack our social networks. They tried to mess with us, tried to persuade us, tried to make us vote a certain way or not vote at all or something, right? And the way they did it was they used these bots, so the things that Nicolas talked about earlier. And the way I kind of visualize a bot in my brain is like, it's kind of like an alien creature that like has this tail that connects to like sources. Sources are people on Twitter that tweet, you know, really polarized, really charged, really aggressive kind of tweets that get a lot of engagement, right? And all the bot does, if you look at the bots in Twitter, is they retweet the tweets, right? So like someone, like let's say the president or Hillary or someone tweets something, the bots retweet it. And here's where the bots actually have an effect, is that humans follow the bots. Like regular people like me and you probably have followed a couple right now. And once you follow a bot, once that tentacle gets into your timeline, and all that propaganda was diffused into your timeline, and you're gonna see it. And you're gonna see it day after day after day, month after month after month. And if you believe Scott's model, that seeing stuff affects my opinion, right? Combination of the new tweet, my current belief. So if you're following the bot can actually affect you. We believe. Okay? Not really proven yet, but that's what we believe. That's why they're doing it, right? I mean, it must work because like Twitter had to suspend 70 million bot accounts this past summer. 70 million. Just for context, I think the number of like active users on Twitter is like 350 million. So like 20% maybe or less. We're on the exact number right now, but a big chunk of Twitter looks like it's bots, you know? And honestly, that doesn't surprise me at all because back in the day, like a few years ago, creating a Twitter account was super easy. I think you just need like a Gmail account, and then you just create a Twitter account for that. So you could make thousands and thousands and thousands of bots really easy, okay? Ever since like the election and all that stuff happened and MAGA and everything, like Twitter and Facebook have like clamped down on this. So now it's very hard to make a Twitter account. Like you need like a phone number and a lot of stuff. So it's a much trickier operation. It can still be done, but it's harder, right? Which means I couldn't make 1 million bots really quickly, but maybe I could make like 1,000 bots if I had resources. That's important. That means that if you're gonna like do this, you want to be able to use your bots in a very clever way. So like the thing Scott talked about earlier about optimizing where you put the bots, that's an important problem now because the bots are more expensive. They're harder to make. You have to get like a Verizon phone or something, you know? But anyway, they're out there, they're being suspended, so it's a problem, right? And just to kind of review how they operate, right? They're targets, that's me and you, all of us, you know, freedom-loving people, regular humans. There are the sources out there putting out their opinions. These could be like stubborn agents that we talked about earlier. And they're the bots. And the bots first connect to us, right? So they get follow backs from us on Twitter or wherever. And then they just pump the source stuff into our feeds. And they do this day after day after day. They do it for maybe even years, right? They're out there just pumping constantly and you're seeing it. And you know, maybe one tweet, 2 tweets won't have a big effect on you, but slowly over time, maybe it does have an effect on us. So the question I asked, and my team asked, me, Scott, Nicolas, and Zach, were like, yo, like, how much impact do the bots have? Like, the bots out there on Twitter, did they really like move our opinions a lot about maybe a certain issue? And that's the question we're going to answer in this talk today. Did the bots actually affect how I felt about stuff? Okay, well, to do that, first I got to understand how a tweet affects my opinion. Now, if Scott wasn't here, I'd go through this slide in a bit more detail, but it's kind of like rehashing what you saw in the previous talk. But in case you're walking right now, you can see the previous talk. I'm in a model where everybody had an opinion theta. And the opinion is between 0 and 1, right? So it kind of give you something to hold on to, something concrete. Maybe it's 2016, the opinion is, do you like Trump or Hillary? Maybe Trump is the 1, Hillary is the 0. Not because they're big or less, just like right and left, okay? So you can hold on to that opinion in your head, Trump or Hillary. Now, the opinions can evolve in time, like we talked about earlier. And people in the network, they have opinions, they follow each other, so the arrow indicates which way the tweets flow, right? So one's following 2 and 3. And the people are tweeting, right? They're tweeting stuff, and one sees the tweets of the people. And as you mentioned earlier, there's the idea of limited verbalization. That the opinion of the tweet isn't exactly the opinion of the person, but we're going to assume that the expected value of that person's tweet, right, given their current opinion, is their current opinion. So if you feel like towards Trump, your score is like a 0.3, then sometimes you tweet a 0.4 tweet, sometimes a 0.1 tweet, but on average you're going to have a 0.3 tweet. Okay, so we'll assume that's the way people behave in Twitter. I think it's a pretty good model of how people behave in Twitter. I don't think it's too far from reality. Now people are Twitter, they're tweeting. Some tweet more than others. Okay, so everybody got a tweet rate. We'll call that rate lambda, and lambda is kind of like how many tweets per day are you posting. Okay, so this guy got a rate lambda 3, pumping into 1. He got a rate lambda 1. Sorry, that should be a lambda 2 actually. You got a typo on the slide, my bad. But is that guy's rate pumping into 1? Yeah. So we got 3 rates, which I can measure very easily. And just to make it really like fancy mathematical, it's in forms. We'll assume that that process of tweeting is a Poisson process. So a discrete point process. The rate of the process is the important part. The rate is lambda. Okay. So that's how we're tweeting on Twitter. All right. So now is really the key part of the model, and you saw this earlier, which is that how does my opinion change when I hear something? Just to rehash it again, my opinion at the next time step is kind of a convex combination, or maybe a weighted average, if you like simpler words, of my current opinion and the opinion of the tweet I just heard. Okay, so I hear something, my belief updates. Okay, so it's the weighted average. The weights we saw earlier, these weights kind of measure how much I'm listening to what I'm hearing. Okay? So the weight measure is like how stubborn the person is. Some people, the weight is 0 all the time. These are these stubborn people we mentioned earlier. Okay? So some people are like that in the graph. We'll assume that's the case. But the rest of us non-stubborn users, as regular, normal human people that actually persuaded, our rates just decay with time. So the older we get, the less and less and less we listen. The derivative, it'll be strictly non-positive. Or in anecdotal terms, you can't teach an old dog new tweets, right? So let's assume that's the reality of our model. So this being the model conditions, right? The question we asked, and this is like the first question we began asking was, what happens in this network over like a couple of years or a couple of months? Is everybody's tweeting, going at each other, stubborn people, non-stubborn people? How are these opinions going to behave after like a couple of months? They're going to reach an equilibrium, okay? And you saw in the previous talk, we found that equilibrium. I'm going to write down in a more intuitive way than the way Scott wrote it. But the equilibrium in the model is that your opinion in equilibrium is going to be the weighted average of your neighbor's opinions. That's the way to write that flow condition, or that matrix equation. This is another intuitive way. And the weight that each neighbor has for you is how much they tweet. So if I tweet more to you, then I want to affect your opinion more than like the guy that you follow that says thing once a week or something. Okay? So the weights are the rates. I'm a poet, I don't even know it. Okay? Alright, so that's what the model predicts for the opinions after a long time. You reach equilibrium, you get stubborns, non-stubborns. The non-stubborns follow that equation. Okay? I'm feeling that. But then, if I was like an opinion dynamics math person or person, I'd stop there. Like that is the paper and I'm done and I go home, right? But I'm a bit more than that. So I asked a question which was, is that model even real? Like that equation I calculated, is that really measuring how the opinions like behave in a real life social network? Well, okay, let's check it out, right? So what would be a ground truth? Well, the ground truth that read your Twitter feed and go, oh, you love Trump, right? Like that's ground truth. So I'm gonna look at your tweets to figure out what your real opinion is, right? Basically saying, I want to average the opinions of your tweets to figure out how you feel about, let's say, the 2016 election, Trump-Hillary. That's a ground truth. The model uses the network, right? Like your neighbor's opinions, to figure out your opinion, right? So we got this model-based opinion. And the question is, or the goal is, do the tweet opinions, what you said in Twitter, match up with these network opinions, what I calculate from that fancy equation that Scott showed you guys in the previous video? Because if that's the case, then the model is kind of like capturing reality. Then the model might actually be useful for other fun stuff, right? Well, let's see if that's the case. So to see if it's the case, we need a data set, right? We got to check some people out and see if they're behaving according to the rules. So our data set came from George Washington University, They collected like 280 million tweets about the election. Big pile of data. All the tweets, using any kind of election-related keywords. Okay. Now that's a really big data set for us, so we actually couldn't like analyze and test on the whole data set. So we picked like a smaller part of it, but still a decent-sized chunk. So we picked the second debate between Trump and Hillary. If you recall, that was the debate where Trump was like walking around and like stalking her and stuff, you know, that debate. We picked that one. Now, the relevant tweets about that debate, the one using the keywords like second debate, whatever, there's about 2.3 million of those tweets. So still a decent number of tweets. And more important for us, those tweets are spoken or tweeted by 78,000 unique individuals on Twitter. Okay? And this is why we couldn't use the whole data set, because the whole data set is probably like a few million people. But remember, we're using a network-based model, right? So I got to build that follower network, who follows who. If you ever done this in Twitter, you know it's like super duper slow, because like they really look the crap out of you. But we found some ways to actually use some clever MIT hacking, and we built these people's network. It took like a couple weeks actually, with 5 million edges. Okay? So we got the whole network of 78,000 people built out. We know who follows who. We also got what they're saying on Twitter, right? All the tweets. All right, so this is the data set. We're going to operate with this, and let's hope like this thing, the model is like works on this thing, right? So, knock on wood. All right. So first you have to like label this data, because we're going to like, you know, figure out your true opinion, and then the network opinion. We got to get that true opinion first. So first let's figure out like what are the really extremely polarized tweets, right? So to do this, we use the technique of like just picking a couple of hashtags that I told my students. Like I told Nicolas is French. I'm like, dude, if someone says this, they are hardcore Trump. If they say lock her up, they love Trump. If they say I'm with her, they love Hillary. Okay, so like big people that say these things and just give them a label of 0. Like any tweet with that word in it is a 0 or a 1. Like Trump or Hillary or Trump. Okay, all right. So we label them Democrats, Republicans. So that process is a subset of the tweets. Not every tweet says lock her up, although Trump would wish they would, but they don't say it yet. Okay. We get about 200,000 tweets with the label. Out of the 2.3 million, about this many have these labels on them. All right, so now I got a ton of tweets, like text, and it's got a label on it, right? And I'm trying to like learn the language patterns of like the different opinions. So what I can do is just take all these labeled text stuff and dump it into some machine learning algorithm, and I'm like, give me the opinions, okay? And we use this a simple neural network. So here's the architecture of it. Not really important the details of it. It's a pretty standard architecture for like doing text classification. We took our data, 80% for training, tested out 20% of those tweets, and it's pretty accurate. Like we get like a 90% accuracy. So this thing really figures out like the polarity of a tweet based upon the text. Like if you don't believe me, let's do a couple of examples. So like here's some blue tweets. Like Trump refuses to say he'll accept the election results. Pig emoji, hashtag Trump, Predator Trump, hashtag debate. That's not an actual pig emoji in Twitter, but for some reason the PowerPoint maps whatever the Twitter emoji was to a pig face. I don't know. But that got a 0. Right? The network thought that's a 0. That's like really serious Hillary tweet. Yeah, Predator Trump. Nobody who's MAGA is gonna say Predator Trump, right? Unless he's like hunting daddy. But they meant like the Me Too kind of way. No. How about this one? Hillary's in the arena, and you've got to get in there with her because democracy isn't a spectator sport. Barack Obama, hashtag Dem is Philly. Democratic tweet, we give it a 0.14, right? Not as like extreme as that one. Real Donald Trump, got out you, big emoji. You belong in jail. I hope that they charge and arrest you, you big emoji, right? So that's a pretty tense tweet. We give it a 0.02. Doing stuff there. How about the other side? Well, here's some MAGA tweets, right? So, how about, I used to have a ton of respect for the Bush family, but if they could still vote for Clinton after all that has come out, my respect has to end. 0.97. That person does not happy with that thing. Real Donald Trump, Florida is with you. As a homeschooling mom since the 1980s, I can help redo our education system. Please contact me. That's MAGA. That's 0.95, right? How about this one? Real Donald Trump, some random users, Washington Times. Why is Hillary still allowed to run for president? Why? Someone needs to put her away, okay? 0.97. So I feel like it kind of works, right? It's detecting our speech patterns very nicely. By the way, this is kind of a testament to how awesome like neural nets have become in the past like 5 years. Like I can just do this, and this is like 3 lines of code in Python. Like this is like a commodity now. Awesome, right? So I'm gonna use this to like do some more cool stuff. Well, we got the tweets classified. Now, the ground truth is gonna be your tweet's opinion. And remember, your tweet's average is gonna be your opinion. So I'll just take a person, take all their tweets, put it through the network, get a couple of numbers, average them, and that's your opinion. That's going to be our ground truth for this analysis. Okay? All right? So if you look at our data and all the people in there calculate their opinions or thetas, and you average the people's thetas, we get a 0.38. Remember, Hillary's on the 0 on the left side. So we got a slight Clinton bias in our data. Right? I'll kind of break it out in a bit more detail. All right? So we got like 8,000 Clinton people. And we got like about 20,000 Trump people, so like 3 to 1. Okay? Why is that the case? I'm not really sure. Maybe like the MAGA people didn't use their second debate hashtag as much. Maybe the way they collected it has some issue. I don't know what it is, but whatever reason, in our data set, we got more Clinton people than Trump people. Okay? Well, that's just what it is, right? I can't dictate what data is. I mean, I kind of did say it exists debate, but once I finish on that, that's how it breaks down. So, I like to draw this picture, which didn't come out as cool in the slide, but this is like the network of people talking to each other in a debate network. The color now is their opinion based upon the neural network. The red ones are Trump, blue ones are Democrats. Those purple edges are who's following who. A couple of clusters there, kind of looks pretty, you know. Like, I like his pictures, they look kind of cool, right? You can't do much with them, they look kind of cool. But this is like an operations conference, I gotta operationalize the network. So let's try to take the network, forget the pretty picture, let's do something interesting. Okay. So remember, we got stubborn people, we got non-stubborn people in our model, right? Let's first identify who is stubborn in this network, right? So how do we do that? Well, remember, we just said, okay, we got 0 to 1 spectrum. Well, let's just say from 0.9 to 1 is a stubborn Trump supporter, and 0.1 to 0 is a stubborn Hillary supporter. Okay? You kind of pick those kind of arbitrarily. All the results I'll show you are kind of robust for the choice of that threshold. Just in case you're wondering, trying to be a hater on me, but we did check like how that, if that's arbitrary, right? But it turns out pretty robust for like the choice of that threshold. So we'll pick this one. With that threshold, we get about 7,700 people. So about 10% of the people are stubborn with those thresholds. And the breakdown is about 6,000 for Clinton and about 1,500 for Trump. All right, so that's the breakdown. All right, so that's stubborn people. So now let's talk about the non-stubborn people. So at this point, I got the network structure, call that graph for a month. I got the opinions of the stubborn people over there, right? And I have an equation that tells me the opinion of all these normies here, right, non-stubborn people, once I have those people's opinions and the network structure. So let's just apply our equation, get the numbers for these people, and let's see if these numbers match up with the tweet-based numbers from the neural network, right? And let's use that equation to like figure out what it is. All right, so here's what we find. So we find that the correlation of the network opinions and the neural network tweet-based opinions is 0.45, right? So that kind of means that I'm basically looking at a bunch of people. I don't know one thing they've said in Twitter, just like the network around them. And I can explain 45% of the variability of their opinions with just our model. Okay? So it's not a perfect model, right? This is not like the model of reality, but it's not bad. Okay? And if you look at how it breaks down, here I'm plotting the tweet opinions for the neural network versus the network-based opinions from our equation. And you kind of see that the variance of the network opinion is a little bit less than the variance of the tweet-based opinions. It's like, there's something I'm missing here to like perfectly map it out. But there is like this monotonic thing, right? Like the tweet opinions get larger, so the network-based opinions. So that means I wouldn't use this model to say, oh, this person's opinion equals this. Like I wouldn't use it that way. But I could use this as something like, oh, I changed the network and the opinion changed. Maybe the changes I can actually try to figure out with the model, but not like the absolute value of it. Or maybe like relative changes, relative shifts. So let's do that. Let's ask the question, what if you never tweeted, ever? Okay? So let's take the network, and then let's modify the network by just taking some people out of the network. Right? You never existed, you never tweeted, just Take your node out of the graph, take your edges away, nobody follows you. Okay? And then let's see what the opinions would have been if you never said anything, right? Now, without our model, you can't really do that, right? Here's a bunch of tweets you said. Let's just delete the tweets from our database. How they get affected over there, other people? You can't say. But with our model, right, I have the whole thing mapped out, like the network gives you the opinion. So if I tweak the network, I can tweak the opinion. So let's take some people out that network. Let's take the bots out the network, right? These are the ones where these are the influence campaign people, right? This is Nicholas to talk about all these bots out there. Let's take them out. Then let's see what the opinions would be if they hadn't been there, and let's see what goes on. Okay. All right. So how do you identify the bots? So again, if this is a talk by myself, I'll go through this in more detail. But Nicholas spoke like an hour ago. He already told you how to do it. We use this icing model algorithm to detect the bots using the retweet graph structure. Once we apply that model to, or that algorithm to data, we find actually some good results. It's only 400 bots. Like 0.5% of that network is bots. It's not bad, right? I feel kind of like, okay, maybe we're not being too like polluted by other content, at least on this topic, the second debate. The breakdown, 260 for Trump, 136 for Hillary. So there's more Trump bots in this data set than Hillary bots. So there you go. The Russians are at it. You got them, right? Call up Mueller, put him in jail, right? You got him. Okay. Also kind of cool results. I don't know if this is good or bad, still debating it, but the regular humans, like 10% of them actually follow these bots. So the bots have an audience. It isn't like half the graph, right? But it's 10%. So maybe it's good, it's like less than half. But that's a lot of people. Like a lot of normal people following the bots, or the tentacles gonna pump stuff into the bots. Okay, that's not that big a number, it's not that big a number, right? So let's see what happens, right? So now we can just like take these 400 people out of the graph and then calculate it and then see how the opinions move, like the average graph opinion, if the bots were not there. Like if the bots hadn't been there, if Russia, whatever wasn't there, what would have been the opinions in this network in 2016? That's what we found. Check it out. This is no bots. It's a world free of the propaganda, the Russians, whatever. This is what happened. The opinions went towards Hillary. Yeah, that was my reaction. I laughed too. I go, I saw the result. I think Nicholas calculated it. I go, check it again, dude. This does not make any sense. Everything I've read in the news tells me that the Russians attacked the election, Trump's in collusion, Trump Moscow, and da-da-da-da. Rachel Maddow's going crazy every night, you know? And forget that stuff, just there's more Trump bots. There's like 260 of them, there's less Hillary bots. How does that happen? That don't make no sense. And Nicolas checked it again in his careful French way, and he says, no, Tauhid, this is correct, this is it. And I'm like, okay, so now we're like, well, now we can understand why did it happen? How these a smaller army of bots push that network towards Hillary. What they do? So remember, our equation says like your opinion is the weighted average of your neighbors, and the weight was the rate. Okay, so let's look at the rates of these people. How often they tweet. So here's the distribution of the human people and the bots. And the bots curves are this red curve is the Trump bots, and this blue one is the Hill bots, the Clinton bots. Okay. So look at that. The median rate of the Trump bots is here, and the median of the Hillary bots is here, a little larger. If you look at the tail there, there's some really extreme Clinton bots out there. Extreme in the sense that they're tweeting a lot. Like, sometimes like double what the Trump bots are doing. So that's what it is. The Clinton bots, though there's less of them, their rate of tweeting, like tweets per day per bot, is actually higher than the Trump bot. And think about the model we have, right? Our model says your opinion is the weighted average of your neighbors. And if that weight's high because you're tweeting a lot, that causes the effect. Okay, so you don't need numbers of like bots to affect, you need numbers of tweets to affect, according to our model. Okay? By the way, another thing that should probably like concern you about this graph, not about its accuracy, but about what it implies, is that over here, this curve is the humans. This is like normal people, right? Not bots. So that's their median, so tiny. And way over there are the bots, like 2 orders of magnitude faster or more active are the bots. So basically, we're in social media. We're just tweeting once, twice a day, whatever. Check what our friend said, like a picture, whatever, like a cat gif. These things are going to work, right? They're grinding it out every day, tweeting, retweeting, whatever. And they're doing that day after day after day, and that's kind of why they can affect us. Right? All right, just like double check the result. Let's do the calculation one more time, but let's just make all the rates equal for everybody. So like in a world where like Twitter like capped your tweet rate to like whatever per day, what would happen in that situation if all the bots tweeted just as fast as the humans? Well, this happens. So this is the world with no bots, okay? Equal rates, and then with the bots, a little bit up for Trump, okay? Because there's more of them, and that's what it is, right? But the effect's much smaller. So all of the gain of a bot, right, is just how active it is in Twitter. The more it talks, if you believe our model, which you should because of our results, right, match up the data, that's more effective, right? And it turns out for at least the bots talking about that second debate, which is not all of Twitter, it's a small chunk of Twitter, the Hillary bots are having more of an effect on that discussion and opinions than the Trump bots, which was totally unexpected. Don't tell the president, he'll probably start tweeting like, oh, the results are fake, like news tomorrow with the bots, they help Hillary. Don't tell them that, just keep it between us. All right, so in conclusion, what did we find out today? All right, small number, like 400 bots, right, but highly active, can have like a big impact on the opinions in the network, according to the model and opinion dynamics, and what we kind of verified from our analysis for the model. Okay. Second thing, we kind of found, at least in our little tiny data set, looks like those bots are actually helping Hillary. Like they're more effective, despite being less in number, because they're more active, right? That's what they give them the advantage. Okay. And finally, and I think this is the important takeaway from this talk, forget all this other fun stuff, right, for politics, but like, this is the key takeaway. If you're gonna run around and say the Russians hacked the election, the bots are destroying democracy, blah, 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 right? What I've given you now is a method to actually check how much the bots mess with you. Just say, oh, they're targeting this state. They're targeting Florida. Okay. Take the people in Florida, build out the Twitter network, collect the tweets, run the neural net, give them their opinion, stubborn, unstubborn, calculate it, find the bots, take the bots out, calculate it again, and see the shift, right? And if that shift is big, then yeah, maybe the bots are like causing a problem in your situation, in your area. And the shift is small, then like, yeah, there's bots out there, but they ain't doing nothing, right? So now you have like a quantitative way to actually answer the question, how much are the bots affecting our opinions? Okay? Final point, I did not say the bots affected a single vote. So don't quote me saying, oh, somebody says they'll votes tipped for Trump, whatever, right? No, not what I'm saying. It just says these opinions would have moved because of that. Doesn't mean he voted, so doesn't mean the elections were on. Doesn't mean that Trump would have won the popular vote if the bots hadn't been there. Don't tell him I said that, okay? But it does suggest, like, you know, if you're monitoring this network, you talk about operationalizing these tools. This is the way you operationalize it. Monitor different populations, calculate the bot opinions with these techniques, and then you can see like if something's going on. Okay? So that being said, just to kind of summarize, tomorrow is election day, do go out and vote, but just make sure like the stuff you saw that made you feel a certain way, because they're doing something, and we have to kind of correct that. Alright? And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Yeah. So, do you think and this was probably more of a question for all of you since the model you used, sounds like it works for all of you. Do you think your model could be improved instead of looking at just the stubbornness, but create a profile of the individual based on data mining to better capture who that person is? And that could be education, it could be background economics. Do you think that would greatly improve your model?
So the model right now is very, very basic. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you're just a number. Now, if you're more than a number, was that going to affect the model? Well, remember, the key assumption of the model is that you say something, then it updates my belief. But that model, that equation is probably okay, but it's not the whole story, right? For instance, like if you are a Hillary supporter and I'm a Trump supporter, I say to you, lock her up. Do you say, maybe you got a point, I should consider her like a jail? No, you say you're a Trump supporter, shut up, I ignore you, right? So what the model's missing right now is that the fact that certain times we just ignore people, right? This model is modeling that aspect of it. So that's one reality that we could actually put in there to improve it a little bit more, maybe make that 0.45 like 7 or 8, right?
So maybe critical thinking.
Exactly. Critical thinking. Maybe we have like trust, right? What you talk about profiles is like trust, right? So if I'm a professor from somewhere fancy school and I say something, you trust me more. So if I say to you, yeah, lock her up, maybe you listen more than like some regular MAGA person on Twitter saying. That's trust. But trust is more like who do you listen to? So it's the update rule of the change if you did that. I think if you capture that, this model will get even more like effective at capturing the reality. This is a very like naive model in a sense, but the fact it does that well, it's kind of like impressive to me. That's it.
So I love the street chime, and of course it's totally everything. But on the other hand, it seems to me that if suppose the bots nobody had any effect at all on anyone, and they were just tweeting because they enjoyed it.
Okay.
Then, because see the thing is, you're studying the equilibrium conditions.
Yep.
Whereas what you really care about and what your main point has to do with transitions of people in their behavior.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that if the bots had no effect and the tweeters had nothing, everybody was just massaging like-minded people, it might get 40% from that. Whereas I think if you study the evolution of the changers, that could potentially strengthen your argument rather than the equilibrium.
So once we did this work, we kind of realized like your point was a very obvious one to us. Like, yeah, how do people actually get persuaded? Like, how does that dynamics happen?
Yeah.
And so like the next work me and Scott are working on is like your question, which is, how can I track the person's opinion evolve? Can I actually manipulate a person in a social network by using cleverly structured tweets, things like that? We're studying it now because I think the next question is like, okay, now you have the bots, you have the targets figured out, but then how do you actually tactically get in there and shift someone from red to blue, blue to red?
Yeah.
And I think that's a more interesting theory. It actually kind of ties to control theory, if you believe
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm saying. You need to model the transient, not just the long-term.
And so like the next step now for us to answer that question. Because like this work is cool, but like it left us a little bit like, there's a bit more to the story, right? We're not done yet. So maybe like next year we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. But yeah, your question is totally right. You have to, how do you tactically take the bots and make them say stuff to push people over the hump?
Yeah, and also see who's persuadable. I mean, most of us are just massaging each other because we've already decided.
Yep, absolutely. But remember, this is a slow process over like a long time horizon. This is not like in a week. This is like months and months of doing this, right? And the goal is to take somebody kind of on the fence this way, kind of on the fence that way. Like Scott's analysis showed, in this network, right, you target certain people. They're probably people close to the middle, right? They get them over the hump. And a little bit of massaging over a long period of time, like slow massaging, 4 or 5 tweets a day, maybe does the trick. We'll find out in our next phase of the research. Any other questions? Yeah, sure.
So how do you define a bot? I think sometimes
How do you what?
A bot. Is a bot equal to a stubborn user or?
Yeah. So in our analysis, we figured, well, if it's a bot, then if I say something to it, it's not going to listen to me and change the opinion. So the bot actually is labeled as a stubborn person. I mean, that's how we did the analysis.
Yeah. So bots are not machine-based users.
We don't know. All we know is that we know